Warning: contains somewhat mature content, including language, brief violence, and mild sexual themes, and may not be suitable for people under age 14.
"What are you doing?" I asked, mouthful of brownie. Rain chuckled. "Playing," he replied. "What, don't like to play?" I blushed, looking away. I made an excuse for not replying by stuffing all the brownies into my mouth, making it impossible for me to speak. Rain laughed and leaned close to me. "You're adorable." I nearly choked on the brownies, covering my mouth and looking at him. I swallowed them with difficulty. "I'm... what?" I said very quietly. "You're adorable," Rain repeated. "Outrageously adorable." I didn't know what to say to that, so I finished the lunch I had bought, and Rain finished his. After we were both done, he looked at me. "I'm sorry, did I make you feel awkward?" I shook my head. "Surprisingly, no," I said. "But it did embarrass me a bit." Rain smiled. "Sorry, but you're cutest when you're embarrassed," he said quietly, which made me even more embarrassed. I don't know why he wanted to fluster me so much, but it was starting to make me feel dizzy. The bell for the next period rang, and we both got up. It took me a few seconds to remember that we had the next class together. We walked to English and sat down at our seats. Just then, 2 girls came over and stood next to Rain's desk. These 2 girls were Samantha and Adrian Winter, and they were twin sisters. They had white blonde hair and dull gray eyes, and just happened to be 2 of the most popular girls in school. Everyone thought they were the prettiest girls in the world, but I thought they were very unattractive. They giggled as they approached Rain. "Hey, Rain," said Samantha, sitting on his desk. "Our parents are going to be out of town this weekend, so we're throwing a party." "Yeah, only the most popular kids are gonna be there," said Adrian. "And since you hang out with Nate and them, you're invited. Plus, you're simply a hunk." I listened to them in disgust, feeling a twinge of jealousy in my stomach. I was hoping Rain didn't say yes to this invite.
"A party, huh?" said Rain. "What's all gonna be there? Is it a pool party? A dance party?"
"A little bit of both," said Samantha. "There's a huge pool, and our house is huge too, so there's a large place to dance and everything. Plus, don't tell anybody, but we've got a bunch of people bringing beer and crap to the party. It'll be wild." Rain chuckled, and the amount of fear I was feeling increased.
"So is Cole invited?"
he asked, and I nearly jumped in surprise. The girls laughed. "Are you kidding?" said Samantha. "Cole is not popular. I don't think he'd be able to last even 5 minutes at this party," said Adrian.
"Well, I don't think I should go if Cole can't go," he said, sounding amused, which I could tell was ticking the girls off. I turned a little bit to watch out of the corner of my eye. Just then Samantha moved from the desk into Rain's lap, putting her arms around him. I felt so angry I could have gone on a rampage. "Oh, come on, Rain," said Samantha seductively. "You know you want to. If you come, me and Adrian might just take you up to our bedroom to have a little fun, if you get my drift." I saw Rain smile, but it wasn't an excited smile. It was more of a sneer, as if he was very amused at her offer. "Wow, that does sound inviting, doesn't it?" he said, very sarcastic. "Sorry, girls, but I'd rather spend my weekend reading than sit in a bedroom getting smothered by a couple of two-faced whores."
I smiled, fighting a laugh as he said that. Samantha looked like she just got slapped, getting off of him and taking her sister's hand. They both glared at Rain, who smiled at them triumphantly, then stormed over to their seats. I turned in my seat to look at Rain fully. "That was amazing," I said. He winked at me, and the second bell rang, signaling the start of class. I lowered my voice and leaned closer to Rain. "Didn't Samantha's offer turn you on at all?" I asked, just out of pure curiosity. Rain laughed softly.
"Nope," he said. "I don't get turned on by that. You should know by now what turns me on."
I blinked, not really understanding what he meant. He smiled at me, knowing I was confused. I turned around in my seat again to watch Mr. Lin give his daily lecture. I wasn't really hearing the lecture, however. I was too busy trying to figure out what Rain meant by what really turns him on. I was beginning to wonder if it had anything to do with him being so affectionate towards me. The rest of the day was boring as usual, as was the bus ride home. After I got off the bus, I actually ran to my house, ran inside, and ran right into my room, shutting the door and putting my stuff down. I snatched up my journal from the floor, sat on my bed, and grabbed a pen. I opened to the next blank page and wrote the date. I was so excited now to write in my journal, but then I froze. I had to be careful about what I was planning to write. If I put anything about Rain showing me any kind of abnormal affection, my parents would read it and send me somewhere very frightening. I know they'd have no mercy on me just because I was their son. When I was 11, I was going to 6th grade and close to hitting puberty. When I finally did, I went to talk to my dad about it because I was confused. It was a huge mistake to tell him because he dragged Mom into it. They both agreed on one thing. I had to like girls and not guys. They told me they'd rather me go get a girl pregnant too early than to go out with a guy. I was very perplexed by this. "What makes you think I want to go out with guys?" I asked them. "We can't be too sure about things," said Mom. "But we'll tell you this now. If we find out you're not heterosexual, we'll send you to a mental institution until you're forced to be normal again." "Why would you send me to an institution because of that? You didn't send me to an institution when I started cutting myself," I said, referring to a few months ago. I was being made fun of a lot and was driven to suicidal tendencies, even though I was very young. "At least cutting yourself is normal," said Dad. "Being attracted to the same sex is a one-way ticket to hell, and we're not going to let our child go down that path." So that's how the whole thing started. When I say they'd send me to a mental institution or get me exercised, I'm not exaggerating. They never cared that I was cutting myself. They just wanted me to be sexually normal. How could they expect me to be a normal child when they weren't even normal parents? I guess that's what I get for being born into a Catholic family, a bunch of paranoid baboons. I stared at my journal page for a while, still trying to decide what to write. Finally, I put my pen to the paper and wrote just a short entry. "Dear Journal, I know it's been about 14 years since I've written, but I never had an excuse to write. Now I do, though. I finally made a friend in school, a best friend even." I read it a few times before deciding there was nothing in the entry to suggest this friend was giving me more than friendly affection. I closed the journal and tossed it back onto the floor. I wondered why I even considered Rain my friend. The way he kissed me all the time should really be freaking me out. What was freaking me out was the fact that I liked all the attention from him. I couldn't help at that instant to just close my eyes and remember our moment in the hall this morning, where he was hugging me as if he was afraid I'd disappear forever. Then I remembered him hugging me in the locker room when we were both almost entirely undressed. I opened my eyes and got off my bed, hurrying to grab some clean pajamas. I had the sudden need for a very cold shower. The next morning, I actually woke up before my alarm went off. I don't know why, but it really annoyed me because I like to sleep in as much as possible. I looked at the clock and saw it was only 10 minutes before it was time for me to get up. I decided there was no point going back to sleep, so I got up and got dressed, putting on some jeans and a light gray button-up shirt today, since I still hadn't done any laundry. After I was done getting ready, I went out to stand at the bus stop, having to wait 10 minutes longer since I got up so early. It didn't bother me, though. I made the time go by faster by thinking about Rain and how excited I was to see him today. The bus came and I got on, having no choice but to sit by this very quiet girl with glasses. It wasn't as bad as sitting by Lionel. I'd choose to sit by anyone but Lionel. I got to school and went inside to do my usual morning wander around the hallways. I was walking for about 3 minutes when I heard running footsteps behind me. I turned and yelled as Rain ran towards me and put his arms around me. He panted, out of breath. He must have been running for a long time before he found me. He took my hand and began pulling me gently. "Cole, you've got to see this," he said, sounding ecstatic. Instinctively, I resisted. Wait a minute, Rain, what must I see?" I asked, bewildered. Rain pulled on my arm again. "Just come on, you'll see when we get there," he said. Finally, I gave in and let him drag me back to the front door of the school. He took me outside and walked me around the building to this little area behind a dumpster. It was very dark and quiet, and reminded me of those spooky alleys people always tell you to try and avoid. I was kind of freaked out that he took me there, wondering what he was going to do to me. He knelt down next to the bushes and beckoned me to kneel as well. I obeyed, and he pulled apart the bushes gently. There was a series of tiny little mews coming from the plants, and I saw, occupying the area, was a large orange cat feeding about 7 little orange baby kittens. I couldn't help but smile at the little family. "Wow, when did you find this?" I asked Rain. The mother cat looked at me, watching me to make sure I didn't harm her babies.
"Just this morning when I walked to school," Rain replied. "I heard mewing and followed the sound. Aren't they precious?"
I nodded and slowly reached my hand to pet one of the kittens, but the mother hissed threateningly. I recoiled and just watched, a bit frightened. Rain laughed.
"Careful, mothers are extremely protective over their offspring. That cat could tear your face off."
I nodded and examined the family, then noticed the mother's stomach. She was tremendously skinny, and I could even see her rib cage. "Rain," I said, worried. "She must be a stray. She looks like she hasn't eaten in forever. That can't be very good for the kittens." Rain frowned, then dug in his backpack, fishing out his bagged lunch. He took out a sandwich and placed it in front of the mother cat.
"She needs this more than me,"
he said. It warmed my heart, his generosity. "Do cats eat bread?" I asked Rain.
"When animals are starving, they'll eat anything," he replied. "If she doesn't eat the bread, she'll only eat the meat and leave the rest of the sandwich to be decomposed, which will be very good for the soil over here."
I smiled, watching the mother sniff the sandwich. She then began eating it, almost savagely. You could tell she was starving. I let my gaze fall to the dirt.
"What's wrong?"
Rain asked me. I looked at him and laughed nervously. "Nothing. It's kind of a stupid thought," I replied. Rain smiled.
"Nonsense. Tell me what's bothering you," he demanded.
I blushed and looked back to the dirt. "Well," I began, "it's just that when you brought me back here, I thought it was because it was secluded and you were—" I choked, unable to finish because it was so embarrassing. Rain frowned.
"That I was what? Don't say rape, please. That's disgusting," he said.
I shook my head. No, just that you'd have an excuse to kiss me much more than you have been lately, because there's no one around." I felt so awkward saying this. Rain sighed and smiled at me.
"Really?" he said. "Well, now that you mention it."
He suddenly put his hand on my chest and gently pushed me onto the ground. I lay there, staring at him as he laid himself on top of me and began kissing me deeply. I was so shocked that I could barely move. He broke the kiss and looked at me.
"You know, if you truly don't like this, all you have to do is say stop,"
he said softly. I hesitated, then shook my head. I know I should tell you to stop," I said shakily, "but I'm not sure if I really want you to." Rain smiled, moving his hand to the buttons on my shirt. He unbuttoned the shirt all the way down, which made me blush, my body feeling very hot. He didn't do anything strange, though. He just sat his hand on my bare ribcage and continued kissing me. I kissed back very slightly, overcome by mixed feelings of fear and excitement. Suddenly the first bell rang. Rain got off me quickly and stood.
"Crap. We gotta go or we'll be late,"
he said. I stood up and buttoned my shirt back up. Rain laughed, walking around me.
"You've got dirt all over you,"
he said, and he wiped off my back. I smiled nervously, and we began to walk back to the front of the school. I was stopped, however, for the mother cat let out a loud meow in my direction. I looked over to see her staring at me. She meowed again. "I'll come back," I told her. "I'll bring you more food, I promise." Rain smiled and tugged at my hand, urging me to hurry up. We both ran into the school, through the halls, and into the locker room just in time to get dressed and head into the gym. We went in to see that Mr. Frey wasn't there today. Instead, we had a substitute teacher. He was old and very fat. He looked like the only sport he ever played was bowling. He sat in a metal folding chair and took roll.
"All right, your teacher told me to send you to your games, but I really don't care what you do. Just don't cause me any trouble,"
he said in an unfriendly, booming voice. Some of the students actually got together to play basketball, including Nate and his friends. I went to go sit on the bleachers, not wanting to do anything involving too much physical activity. Rain followed and sat next to me.
"This guy is a joke,"
he said, referring to the sub.
"There's no way he can have a major in physical education."
"Does it matter?" I asked, watching the sub as he deliberately fell asleep in his chair.
"Well, yeah," said Rain. "If he doesn't major in this field, I don't think he's allowed to substitute for this class."
"Who cares?" I said, watching as Ricky and Lionel left their game and went to draw on the sub's face with a Sharpie. "As long as I don't have to play basketball today, I'm happy." Rain smiled and moved closer to me.
I really wish I could kiss you right now, he whispered. I blushed and looked at him. He smiled at me and chuckled. It sucks that we couldn't have stayed behind that dumpster a little longer. Why do you always want to kiss me? I asked him, voice cracking. Come on, Cole, he said. Haven't you figured it out yet? I went silent and hung my head. The truth was, I wasn't sure if I wanted to figure it out.